Pero tenemos que continuar con una charla, una conferencia muy, muy importante. Se ha hablado toda la mañana de innovación, se ha hablado toda la mañana de confianza por parte de las audiencias y vamos a escuchar una exposición, una conferencia que justamente habla de estos temas. Hemos invitado a Sonal Shah, no sé si lo pronuncié bien, Sonal, que es la CEO de Texas Tribune, que va a hablar de reconstruyendo la confianza, innovar los medios sin fines de lucro en la era digital. Así que le damos un aplauso a Sonal para dar la bienvenida, por favor. Como les decía, la conferencia de Sonal va a ser en inglés, así que si alguien necesita el equipo de traducción, lo puede encontrar en la salida del foyer a la derecha. A ver, sí. Estoy tratando que... ¿Me ayudás con esto acá que se movió? Ahí está.
Hello. I apologize in advance that I need to speak in English. I wish my Spanish was actually better. I can understand it better than I can speak it. So thank you for gracing me and allowing me to speak in English to all of you. First of all, I want to say thank you to all of you. The work that you do could not be more important today than ever before. And it's amazing how much journalism is more important in crises than any other time. And this is an important time. So thank you for all that you do. Thank you for your leadership. Thank you to Carlos. Thank you to SIP Connect for inviting me. It's really a pleasure to be here. I wanted to talk to you about the journalism of the Texas Tribune. We are a nonprofit, nonpartisan news organization started in 2009, 15 years ago, as a digital-first news site. So we've never been print. We only started on digital. We started a website in 2009. When we started, there was no digital site in Texas. So the first time to get started, we had to build our own technology. We had to build our own CMS. We had to build everything from scratch because what currently the tools are, which are great, did not exist at the time. We are mission focused, and what I mean by that is in 2009, we looked and we saw that nobody was covering the Texas Capitol, the legislature in Texas. Our legislature only meets once every 2 years for 6 months, which means every decision that gets made in that 6-month period is important for the next 2 years. So this year was one of those years where our legislature met, and it's important because people don't know what decisions affect them, how they affect them. So when we first started, we started with one mission. We will be the best at covering the Texas legislature better than anyone else. Dallas Morning News only had 2 reporters. Austin American-Statesman wasn't really covering the legislature. Houston Chronicle wasn't covering the legislature at the time. We have 9 reporters that cover just the state legislature. Since then, we have expanded to covering education, energy, environment, health, immigration, and then the regions of Texas. But what we do is we cover policy and politics. We try to translate what the policy and politics of what happens in the legislature means to communities and ensuring that we know what is affecting the communities so the legislature knows what's happening. So for example, this year, we did a 16-part series on water in Texas. Rural areas, urban areas, South Texas, West Texas, East Texas. That 16-part series affected how the state legislature funded water, which is $1 billion a year for the next 15 years. This year, the impact of the Texas Tribune was we were cited 24 times by the legislators in their bills when they were writing their bills, 12 of them from Republicans. So bipartisan. The second most cited organization in Texas was 12 times, and it was a nonprofit think tank called Texas 2036. So the impact of the work that we do matters. Yes, the legislators complain about us. Yes, they don't like what we always report, but yes, they're also reading us. Because what they see is what we write matters to them, and it matters to their constituencies, the people that they talk to on a regular basis. Our business model is 25% funded by foundations, so large foundations, small foundations. I'd say majority of them are Texas-based foundations, but some of the larger ones also fund us, MacArthur, Ford, Knight Foundation. 25% of our funding comes from individuals. And by that, I mean people that donate between $1,000 and $100,000 a year. 35% comes from sponsorship. And what I mean by sponsorship is events, website, newsletters. So it can be anything from the University of Texas system to Texas A&M to the Water Authority to companies like JP Morgan. We also run a major festival every year called the Texas Tribune Festival. That festival has about 100 sessions, 300 speakers, and 7,000 people that attend the festival. It's a major revenue earner for us throughout the year. We also do 40 events per year across the state, both in Austin, but also in different parts of Texas. We have about 90 people in the organization. 60 of them are in the journalism side, and then we have people in events, engineers, product managers, finance, development and revenue, and HR. We are multi-platform, so we have a website. Our greatest readership is actually on newsletters. We're on Apple News, Smart News, Reddit, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, and WhatsApp. And we're assessing other platforms like Nextdoor to see if there are other places we should be. Where are people finding their news? What we are always looking for is where are people going to find us, not where we're published. Because as you've heard from the other speakers, it's really about finding people where they are. It's not about what we write or where we write, it's about where are they reading it and how are they gonna read it. We use AI both internally for our journalists. So we have bots that allow journalists to ask about our archives, what we've written before, what's been written. It answers those questions for them. But we also use AI with our audience. So this year, for example, we did a special report on education because the Texas legislature was focused on vouchers. We created an AI bot next to the special report that allowed users to ask questions of the report so they could get answers for themselves. And what we learned by it, we trained the bot that if it didn't know the answer, it came back to the journalists. And what we learned by doing that is actually it became a really great engagement tool because it gave the journalists an opportunity to understand what questions were people asking, and that led to another 4 or 5 stories because the bot was telling us something we didn't know about where people were and what we could do with it. But we're experimenting. It's the only way we can learn, and it's the only way we can use it. We are hyper-focused on our audience and really thinking now we've added short-form video producers onto our team, and that is Instagram and TikTok and YouTube. People like short-form video. So how do we engage the audience? How do we have them come back to us? Not just find us for the first time, but stay with us. So if they find us on Instagram or TikTok or on a Smart News or Apple News, driving them to our website or to our newsletters. Really is the newsletters where our greatest engagement is. These are people that stay with us all the time. Those newsletters lead to membership, which leads to donations. And that's sort of a lot of the work that we do. We have about 30 million unique views a year, 13 million just in Texas, 17 million nationally. And we are publishing, on average, probably 8 to 10 stories a day. If you do something like the floods that happened in Texas recently, we were the full coverage of what was happening in the Texas floods. We had 17 reporters and journalists in the flood areas to cover those stories. But like I said, the thing that we measure the most in everything that we do is the impact that we have. And what I mean by impact is there legislation that is changing? Are people's voices being heard in the legislature? Has somebody engaged with us because they wanted to learn something? So it's not just the stories we publish, it's the guides that we do. We run a guide every year on how to vote in an election. Not who to vote for, but how to vote. Where do you go register? Where can you vote? Who's on the ballot? What topics are on the ballot? We publish guides on everything from how do you stay safe in hurricanes? How do you stay safe in floods? How does your Texas grid actually operate? What happens when the grid doesn't have enough, energy coming in? What do we need to do? How does solar work? But those guides are really a great way to engage our audience with us, because that's how they get to find us, and we get to understand what questions they have and what they want to do. And then the events that we do throughout the year is a great engagement strategy. We get anywhere from 90 people to 400 people, depending on the size of the event that we're doing on a regular basis. And that's because it's an opportunity and I think you've heard this earlier today about live journalism. It's an opportunity for people to ask questions of the newsmakers. It's an opportunity many times for them to meet lawmakers, because they don't get a chance to do that. They don't always get a chance to meet business people or others that are influencing policy and what that could be done. So we are constantly thinking about how to engage people and what's the best way of engaging, but our impact is really when something changes. And an example of that is 2 years ago, if you remember the shootings in Uvalde, we did a constant series there, but we also did a deep investigation with ProPublica as a partner. And what we found during that shooting is that the police and the students were being taught two different things. The students and teachers were told to be quiet when there was an active shooter. The police thought nobody was in the school because it was quiet. That report has changed the way that police are now being trained about active shooters. We believe that is impact. That's the impact we want to have, is to make changes that maybe it's not the most popular story, maybe it's not the thing everybody wants to read, but maybe the lawmakers were mad at us because we kept asking for records. But what it did is it changed the way somebody thinks about how they might train differently. And that's what we hope to continue to do. Right now, we're looking at investigating what's happening with the floods and what do we need to understand. So for the future, policymakers, county officers, county officials, mayors can make different decisions based on what we can learn from that. We are free to republish. We do not have a paywall. And the reason we do that is what we have learned is that people stopped engaging in Texas with the news when there was a paywall. And we wanted people to continue to engage. So we do not have a paywall. We are free to republish. On an average basis, probably 10 newspapers in Texas republish our stories wholesale on their front pages. We track as many of them as we can, but we are probably the front page of most newspapers about 10 times a day. 10 for 10 stories every week or per day, sometimes we'll see stories being republished on a regular basis. But we think that's important. It's not easy. I mean, as you've heard, if you have AI crawlers, they've already crawled through our website. We know that. And we know it's going to happen. We've built actually relationships with Perplexity and some of the other AI companies to make sure they at least cite our work, because we think it's important. Yes, you may have a summary, but at least cite the work. So we're trying to stay ahead of the game on technology so we can actually be ahead and understand where it's being used, how it's being used, how do our journalists understand it, how do they think about it, and yet have a clear policy that whenever we use it, we let the audience know. What we don't want someone to think is that we're not using it. We are using it. So every story that's on our website has an audio version that is read by AI. Every time we use it, we just let people know. So we want that same transparency that we are using. Because what we're seeing is that our readers are changing, and the people that find us are looking to find us in different ways. So we need to find ourselves in different ways. Our reporters are encouraged to be on TikTok. Our reporters are encouraged to be on Instagram. Our reporters are encouraged to use short-form video. Some of them test it, and then others come along. Do we think everybody's going to use it? No. But will some of them use it? Absolutely. And when one reporter uses it, we find others want to use it. And so that's how we're doing it. We can't force everyone to do everything, but what we can do is try a few things, experiment with us, and do that. And then we do a lot of partnerships. We partner with ProPublica on investigations. We partner with other news outlets in Texas, with the Texas Newsroom, radio, on stories, and we'll cover their stories, they'll cover our stories, we'll give them access to the work that we're doing from a digital perspective. We go on to the radio many times, we partner with TV stations. We can't cover Texas without partnership. There are 142 counties in Texas that have only one news source. 37 counties in Texas of 254 have no news whatsoever, no TV, no radio, no print. So our goal is, how often can we partner? How often can we make sure good information is getting into the hands of people that need it and want it? And how do we build a relationship with them that if they have a question, if they have a concern, if they have a comment, that we respond to them on a timely basis? My observation, I do not come from the field of journalism, I'm actually an economist by background. My observation is that we used to take in letters to the editor, we used to get lots of comments. Because of the vitriol, we no longer read comments or even post comments. So if there's a way for us to figure out how to get comments and how to engage, our goal is to build trust with our readers and build trust with the audience. In Texas, the thing we see is what's been lost is trust. And what we have to rebuild is trust. They like journalists, they don't necessarily like the institution. So how do we put our journalists out first? They like audio, they don't necessarily want to read, so how do we read? This year, we've started 2 news sites that are local. We're statewide, so we cover the whole state. We cover largely news that affects the state, not a city or a county or a specific group. So this year we started a local website in Waco and a local site in Austin to cover local news in Austin and Waco. The reason we're starting local is that we know trust is even more local. So if they see the journalists, if they see the editors, if they can have access to them, they build trust. So having a local site in Waco that reports only about Waco has increased. Just in the 2 months that we've been up and running in Waco, we've added 1,500 members. Our goal is 5,000 by the end of the year, but really this is how we're going to build trust, is making sure we can be there. Austin will do the same thing. We're looking at an acquisition in Houston, and we're looking at a potential merger in El Paso. But even as a nonprofit, let me just say, while we are a nonprofit, what we are not, that's a tax status, we're still a business. The business of a nonprofit is still running an organization that has enough money to cover our expenses and to cover all the things. So what are some of the lessons we've learned along the way? One, we have to meet people where they are. Two, we have to stay ahead on technology on a regular basis. We can't just assume that the technology we used 15 years ago is enough today. Partnerships matter. We can't do this by ourselves. We have to do this in partnership. Stay hyper-focused on mission. There are things we don't do. We don't cover sports. We don't cover culture. We don't cover arts. We cover policy and politics. We're pretty focused on that, and we're not trying to be everything to everybody because we are a nonprofit. We're limited by the resources that we have. We can't do more than we do, but we try to stay focused on that. And then we're always focused on audience. Where is our audience? Who is our audience? How are they finding us? When are they finding us? How much are they staying engaged? Are they reading 3/4 of the way down, or are they just reading the headline? How do we make sure we're constantly engaged? And then finally, to our donors, because for us the donors matter a lot and our members matter a lot, looking at segmentation and understanding the small dollar donors that give us less than $100, what are the issues they care about? The large dollar donors, what are the messages that work from them? How do we do invitations with them? What are the ways to do that? But it's actually very important for us that we continue as a nonprofit because it's a way we know people are engaged. If they're donating to us, if they become a member, they're engaging with us, and we want to make sure they can do that. So that's sort of our business model. It's how we operate today. I think American Journalism Project was started because of the model of the Texas Tribune. John Thornton, who was our founder, who passed away recently, was also the founder of the American Journalism Project, that when he saw what Texas was doing, he wanted to do it across the country. So there are many more nonprofit newsrooms today than there were 15 years ago. And I'd say we're very proud of it, and we hope there are more because it's a model that local news can get restarted. What we don't need is a story that's constantly telling us news is dying. What we need to tell people is how to reimagine news and make sure we continue to thrive, because there is no more important time for journalism and news than today. And the more we can keep telling that story and give people a reason and a mission to stay engaged, that's the goal that we have. So thank you again for inviting me. Thank you for having me. I'd love to take any questions you might have about our model or what we can learn, but thank you for the invitation.
¿Te puedes acercar ahí porque no tengo el micrófono? Ahora lo buscamos. Acá está.
Thank you so much, Sonal. Can you hear? So, thank you. You mentioned, the news deserts and the situation in Texas, which is clear evidence. And my question is, do you think nonprofit journalism can be a scalable solution to fill in the vacuum created by news deserts and support of local journalism?
Yeah, it's a great question. It's a solution. It's not the only solution, is what I would say. I think nonprofit journalism has a role to play. And what I mean by that is, in many places in news deserts, the way we got started, for example, in Waco, is we had local funders, a local community foundation, and local leaders that came together that said they wanted news in Waco. They did a study that showed that the audience wanted news. If there was an audience, we could start news. And the audience wanted the news, and because of that, we're getting started with it. Scale for us is not the Texas Tribune becoming 200 journalists. Scale for us is going to be a lot of locals where we provide shared services. And what I mean by that is we provide shared finance, shared technology, shared HR, but local news will continue to support and do their local news. We'll just provide the clear platforms that everybody can use. That's how we're going to scale. And I think that's where the future of nonprofit news is actually going, is scaling where we create shared services. Because each individual nonprofit newsroom, having a finance department, having a technology, having product, is going to be too expensive. And so how we think about and creating a shared business model is, I think, what we are looking at and what we're seeing is a trend that's growing.
Thanks, Sonal. Otra pregunta ahí.
Thank you for your presentation. And more than 10 million Hispanics live in Texas. Do you offer any content in Spanish?
No, and that's a great question, and we get asked that all the time. The Spanish-speaking community is not coming to the Texas Tribune. So what we need to do is actually build a partnership with where they are going and providing news to those organizations that can then build the trust. They're not coming to us because we're not the trusted space that they come to. But what we have done is actually interesting events. We've done a couple of events in Houston. For example, last year, we did a story on the Houston Ship Channel, most largely Hispanic community that lives there. There's a really significant air quality problem there. We did a story, we talked to the residents. After we did the story, we went back to the community and translated the stories in Spanish for them, but did an event with them so they could ask questions with local nonprofits that then taught them how to do air quality monitoring so they can advocate at the Houston City Council. So it's going to take more creativity along those lines, because even if we're on WhatsApp, even if we translate it, they're not coming to us. We're not the trusted place for them to come to, but we need to partner with the trusted organizations that the Hispanic community is going to and let them get the news there, but how do we do it where they get the information that they need? So that's a little bit of the experimentation we're doing.
Thank you.
Tenemos tiempo si hay alguna pregunta más para Sonal. Bueno, muchísimas gracias. Thank you very much,
Thank you.
Sonal, for your presentation. Thank you.